Hi, my name is Terry Coles and I'm International Living's correspondent here in Portugal. Today I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself, what we love about Portugal, and the whys and hows of how we ended up here. The year was 2010 and my husband Clyde was researching retiring and how could he afford to retire on a firefighter paramedic pension from Southern Texas with the high price of living in the U.S. and healthcare in the U.S. So he was researching it online one day and up pops an ad for International Living. So he starts researching it and reading more. He ordered a subscription to the magazine and the rest was history. Boy, I remember reading those magazines back in the day. At the time, Clyde nor I had either traveled. We'd only been a little bit to Mexico and I'd been to Canada. But we had never been to Europe, we had never been to Asia or Latin America or any of these other countries. So for us, this was really a crazy idea. Yet here we are almost 10 years later. I remember reading it from cover to cover and thinking, wow, I've always wanted to go to Italy and Spain and Latin America and Mexico and all these other places, and could we actually live there? How crazy is this idea? So our life abroad began in Panama. For us who had never traveled, it was 4 or 5 hours from the US, so it was a great starting out point. We bought a house, we developed a lot of friends, we lived happily there for 5 years until I convinced Clyde to take our first ever trip to Europe. We spent a month in Europe, covered 5 different countries, and went back as changed people and decided it was time to move on and we wanted to live somewhere else now. We had got our feet wet by this close country of Panama and thought now we can go further. Not knowing where we wanted to go, we sold the house in Panama with everything in it and walked away with 2 suitcases each, 2 small suitcases each. And we traveled the world for 2 years, living inexpensively by doing house and pet sitting. And it was fun, and we had a great time, and we had pet sits all around the world. And it was from a sit in Portugal that we discovered this country, started talking to expats here, and found out just how easy it is as a country in Europe for Americans to settle in. That was over 2 years ago. So it all started from an International Living subscription. And here I am, their correspondent now. But what do we love about Portugal? We do love the people. The Portuguese people are wonderful. Many of them do speak English. It is taught in the schools. They even have some TV programs in English here. And all of the movies that come from the US and around the world are run in their original language. So any movies from the US are shown here in English with Portuguese subtitles. For us, that makes it wonderful. We've lived in many other countries where this was not the case. You had to speak the language in order to go watch a movie. And it depends in Portugal where you choose to live. Currently, we're in the Algarve, and English is widely spoken here because there's been such a big presence of British people for many, many years. So a lot of the Portuguese do speak English here. Lisbon is more, you might find English spoken there. The further up north you get and away from these areas, Portuguese is more of the language and you really do have to know some of it. We started our life out in Portugal in the middle of the country on the Silver Coast near the city of Caldas da Rainha. It's an inexpensive area. We rented a 3-bedroom fully furnished house for 350 euros a month. We loved the area, met a lot of friends, and had great times, but the winters are chilly and wet, and it's damp, and I was having problems with my allergies despite going to an allergist and being on a lot of medication. And we were cold much of the time. Having lived in Panama, which is hot year-round, we're warm weather people. So we decided if we were going to keep living in Portugal, we'd have to try the Algarve, which is a much more expensive area, much more English is spoken, and a lot of people think it's not real Portugal. It is real Portugal. So we moved here in the summer. And so far we're liking it. Here we are in the middle of December, and outside, well, today's a cool rainy day, but the daytime temperatures reach 60, night times are in the 50s or sometimes high 40s, but it's a much milder winter and drier than it was up north. Portugal has great people. It's easy to find most everything you want. To me, Portugal is so much more like the US than Panama or some countries we've been to. Fruits and vegetables are grown here. They're wonderful. We eat a plant-based diet, so it's pretty affordable to buy plenty of fruits and vegetables and things like that for healthy eating. Healthcare. Being older Americans, it was essential to find a place where healthcare was good. And that was another reason why we came here. Healthcare was actually good in Panama, by the way, and many of the countries we'd been to, where we'd seen doctors or been hospitalized, healthcare was as good or better in most times than any U.S. healthcare we've had, and at a fraction of the cost. Just an example, even in this expensive part of Portugal, we can walk into an international clinic close to where we live. I can see an English-speaking doctor for 30 euros, which is about 35 US. And I've been there a few times. It's a great experience. I've seen a gynecologist. I've seen a general practitioner who take their time and just sit down and talk to you about anything you want and answer any of your health concerns. So healthcare here is good. Another word on the infrastructure. The highway system is wonderful here. It's just like any U.S. highway system. There are toll roads, there are non-toll roads. The tolls can get a little pricey, but there's not a pothole anywhere. The roads are really well kept here throughout the country, and it's easy to get around. Water is very drinkable everywhere you go. It's delicious. It's pretty much all I drink other than an occasional coffee. I'm a big water drinker, so that's a big issue for me wherever I live. Of course, wine is also great, and wine is just as cheap as water here. This is Europe. Electricity is good, very efficient. It is expensive, so you do have to watch what you use. Internet is very good, and another essential for most of us that we can't live without nowadays. What else did I want to talk about? Affordability. What's a typical budget to live in Portugal? It is one of the least expensive countries in Europe. A typical couple could live on about $2,200 US a month, depending on where you're coming from the US and how you choose to live. If you're coming from New York City or California, or used to having a couple $1,000 mortgage and 2 car payments and lots of expenses there, this will seem very cheap. If you're coming from small town America, where you're not having car payments, you have a house that's paid for maybe, you don't go out to eat, and you're living a simple life, this might be just as expensive or more expensive. We have friends here that live without cars, and that saves a big expense. We have friends living in big cities or small towns. As I said, central Portugal and northern Portugal is much more affordable. Our rent was 350 euros there. Here we're paying 850, and it's a much smaller place, but it's more modern and compact and easier to heat and cool off, which is something we're looking for. So you can find all kinds of budgets here. We did buy a car. Gasoline or diesel is expensive. And it depends how much you use it. Sometimes our budget is higher than others, depending on if we go out exploring or we not, or if we don't. These days during COVID, we're not allowed to go too far, so we're saving money that way. I think our typical budget is typically between $2,500 and $3,000 a month. And we live well. We do what we want. We don't eat out a lot. We have a gym membership at a very nice gym, which we can walk to from our house. It's more expensive than other gyms we've used here, but we like to stay fit and active. We think that's important. Healthcare. One of the biggest reasons we moved out of the U.S. was healthcare. 9 years ago, my husband's healthcare was going to be $1,400 a month for the two of us. Here, we pay 288 euros a month for the two of us, which translates to about 350 or 60 US dollars, I believe. It's a very good comprehensive plan. It covers my husband's pre-existing condition. He has a pacemaker, which he was hospitalized for in Spain and had a great experience there. So it really depends. Healthcare here depends on your age, health insurance, I mean. Depends on the age, pre-existing conditions, and how comprehensive of a plan you want it to be. We have friends that are paying very little, but maybe have a high deductible, or it only covers at 50%. Ours covers at 90% if the doctor is in network, 80% if the doctor is out of network, and if they're out of network, we need to pay first and then get reimbursed. But so far, we've been very happy with it. Our younger friends are paying much less. If you're over 75 here, I believe you cannot get insurance, but you can get a discount plan. And because healthcare is so affordable here, if you can see a doctor for $30, 30 euros, I mean, it's definitely doable. There's also the public system here. And it depends on where you live. Some of the public hospitals are better than others. We've been told by Portuguese people. The landlady that we rented from up north was a nurse, and she told us this, so we know that coming from somebody that's in the business. We had a friend that was in a hospital near the city of Torres Vedras here, a British man, and we went to visit him in a public hospital. I was very impressed. I'm a germaphobe. I'm cold all the time. The hospital was warm. It was clean. What's different for us Americans is that the hospital rooms here in the public system are wards. He was in with 5 other beds. Only 2 of them, I think, were occupied, and it was very quiet. Being British, he said that's very common in the UK, and the wards are larger there. So for an American that's used to being in a private hospital room, for me, that was different. But I've heard people have had great experiences in the public hospitals here as well as the private. Because we have to carry health insurance as Americans, we will choose to use the private system whenever possible. But in the event of an emergency, if an ambulance would come get us, we would be taken to a public hospital and have to decide if we wanted to be transferred from there. Of course, it depends how the severity of our illness at the time. Hopefully, it will never come to that. You know how these things go. So what is the climate like in Portugal? I like to tell people Portugal has weather, some type of weather for everyone. Like I said, we're warm weather people. We like it warm most of the year. It's not really warm enough in the winter here, but we knew we'd have 4 seasons. So the Algarve is has the mildest temperature in Portugal. The winters are mild. Daytime temperatures get up to high 50s and 60s. Night times are a little cooler. The Alentejo is the next southern area. Summers in the Alentejo are extreme. They get up into the hundreds. Very hot, dry summers. Cold winters because it's kind of desert-like, from what I understand. And we looked into moving into the Alentejo instead of the Algarve, but decided to come here. Central Portugal, the winters are rainy. They get most of the rain in the winter, although the area we were in got a lot of sea mist in the morning and fog, so a lot of dampness there. Mold can be a problem in some houses. You do need to have, we do need dehumidifiers here to help with that issue. Summers in the central region are not too hot, and there's a large British population there because they tend not to like extremely hot summers. Summers last year when we were there, when we decided to move, were still in the 60s, low 70s, and for me that's not summer. We were used to Panama summers where it was 85 or 90 year round. So If you like cooler weather, the central area might be what you're looking at. The further up north you get, the winters get colder. The winters are not snowy here. There's no snow for the most part, except in the mountains. There is one ski area in the country, so you actually can go skiing here. The winters tend to be wet and rainy. The further up north you get, there might be some ice and a little bit of that, but no snow anywhere. Summers are warm, winters are cold, depending on where you settle in the country, but has something for everyone. The whole Atlantic coast lines one side of Portugal, so you're never too far from the ocean. Anywhere we've lived, even when we were near Caldish, we were, a 10 or 15 minute drive from the ocean. So that's a nice feature. And we're also not that far from Spain. It's easy to drive a couple hours into Spain, which is fun. It's like driving from one U.S. state to another. You just cross the border into another country. So we're enjoying our time here. We love Portugal. We love everything about it. Oh, food, I guess I should mention, since most people want to hear about that. Because there's so much coastal area here, fish is very commonly eaten in restaurants. One of the typical things served at lunchtime here is the meal of the day, the prato do dia, which is a whole meal, usually sometimes an appetizer, a drink, and a dessert for one set price. And depends on where you are in the country. I think in the Algarve here, prices go for, I think anywhere from 8 or 9 to maybe 13 euros. When we were in central Portugal, we ate lunch out once for $3.75, and that was the meal of the day. It was a breaded turkey cutlet with French fries and rice. Okay, not the healthiest thing. We were eating meat back then, but we have stopped since. So depending on where you are in the country, eating out is very affordable. Wine is very affordable. A glass of wine at a typical restaurant might be anywhere from €1.50 to $2.50. Unbelievable by U.S. standards. A cup of coffee here, it's typically a tiny little cup of espresso, but it goes for 60 or 70 cents. You can get larger cups that get maybe €1. A little more expensive, but still very affordable. Pastries are wonderful here. The national pastry is the pastel de nata, which is a little custard treat. They're good, but the best ones I've had were in the city of Lisbon itself. There's an area called Belém where they make them. And this factory rolls out up to 20,000 of these delectable little pies on a busy weekend. Having them fresh out of the oven there were delicious. And I could have eaten many more of them. So food is good here. Wine is good here. The people are wonderful here. The sights to see are spectacular. What's not to love? And it's affordable. And it's fun to think we actually live in Europe. When I first mentioned a trip to Europe to my husband, he said, people like us don't go to Europe. Only rich people go to Europe. Now I have to continually remind him that we live in Europe. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed hearing my little comments today. And if you have any questions, you can email me at portugal@internationalliving.com. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Jason Holland. I'm the roving Latin America editor for International Living. You don't have to be rich to enjoy a pampered retirement. You just need to know where to go. With our 30th annual Global Retirement Index, we hand you a map. It has been designed to enable you to easily home in on the places that make sense for your situation, priorities, and budget. It's a powerful tool, and you can get early access by going to intliving.com/AGRI and signing up today.